nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next we have presentations. Communications, Dr. Almer.
I have nothing for this evening.
President's report, we had an executive committee meeting was held before the meeting at 5:45 p.m. for the purpose of legal and personnel. IU report, Jesse.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report.
I want to start by recognizing May's Employee of the Month is Mr. Paul Mantle, who is a custodian at the high school. Again, remember that these are recommended by their peers, and Paul does a very good job at the high school, and I'm happy to point out that he is May Employee of the Month. There are two things on the agenda, B and C, that are on just for presentation. The first one is what PDE refers to as the Emergency Instructional Time Template. For those of you that weren't here last year, this will be the third year in a row we have done this, but I want to explain a little bit for the new board members. This document is required for you to approve and submit to PDE if there's any chance that, and we did do this last year even though we didn't use it, so that's a good way for me to point this out. So because PDE is still operating under an emergency declaration, you have the ability, it's on there, filled out in draft so you can see what it looks like. Essentially what this does, if you approve this and I send this into the Department of Ed for 22-23, if we have a situation in the next school year where we would need to be remote due to COVID, if this is approved and submitted before the school year begins, those days can count as instructional days. If you don't authorize this and I don't send this in, if we would end up needing to close due to COVID, we cannot use those to count as school days if this step isn't done. So it's on there for you to review. It's pretty simple. It pretty much is just me swearing that yes, we'll still have 180 days and we'll still meet all the requirements and all those things. But the board does have to approve that for you to submit it, or we cannot use remote days due to COVID as instructional time. The second thing is the health and safety plan. We did review this back in December. It is required to be reviewed every 6 months as a requirement of ESSER funding. So I really didn't change much other than I deleted some of the language that we updated in December. You can see it there for your review. It is still pretty generic in terms of what we are requiring and what we are doing. I rolled it back to that we will follow requirements, which we had in there prior to that December review. So it essentially looks like it looked last summer. I took some of the things we added in December back out, but this does have to be reviewed every 6 months to be in compliance. So that's why I have there, this is we are required to do a 6-month review. It does have to be voted on, and then the date of it changed in terms of when you reviewed it and reposted publicly. So it will be on a future agenda. It's there tonight just for your information under my report to look over. Questions about either of those two items? Okay, then I'm going to recognize Jason Fink from the Williamsport-Lycoming Chamber of Commerce to talk about the West Pharmaceuticals LERTA. Jason?
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all for having me here tonight. And I will just say, I always hate following anything about COVID, so. And I know you all do the same, so. Here tonight actually to talk to you about some exciting things that are going on here in the community. We are working right now with West Pharmaceuticals on a project that is down between the Jersey Shore facility and expand their facility in Kinston, North Carolina. They reached out to us through a consultant that they've been working with that had reached out to us previously for the Williamsport expansion that will be breaking ground here actually in about a week and a half, to talk to us about another opportunity, a much larger opportunity that we would have here in Lycoming County. They spoke to us about an investment that they would be making considerably larger than what's taking place in Williamsport. Williamsport right now, they're looking at about a $35 million project that would be adding somewhere around 50 people. They are looking at here in Jersey Shore, making an investment of somewhere in the neighborhood of $65 to $70 million, expanding their physical plant, and in addition, adding somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 to 150 people. One of the things that they talked to us about was, as we did when we were working with them on the Williamsport opportunity, was to arrange for a meeting with the governor's action team to be able to provide information about the project so that they could see what the state could step up and assist them with. And then in addition, they asked us to look at opportunities where the local community could come in and be involved with it. One of the things, just to make you aware of, that's in play here that they've asked us to pursue, and the only thing that they've asked us to pursue here in Lycoming County at the local level is LRTA. And I believe you all have received this information with regards to what LRTA is. We have, in Williamsport, they have LRTA right now. And that's where they brought that up to us to see if Jersey Shore would be willing to pursue LRTA for them, to be able to allow them to cover some of the costs and investment that they're going to be making as they advance with their project here. They looked at it. The key thing that we like about LRTA is the fact that it does not require you to give up anything that you're receiving right now. It does not ask you to abate any of the existing taxes. What it does is ask you to gradually bring them up to the full property value for the new expansion that they would be making. That would be over a 7-year period. That's very similar to what what Williamsport has right now. The way that the program in Williamsport operates, which is what we would be presenting to all 3 of the taxing bodies here under the Jersey Shore area, which would be the school district, the borough, as well as the county. It would be 7 years. The first 2 years would be at 100% abatement on the new addition. Then it would add another 25%, meaning that it would be 75% abated for the next 2 years. And then for the following 2 years after that, it would be 50% abatement. And then the last year would be 25%. After that 7 years, it would be fully on the tax rolls at that point. So that's what they're looking at. I do have a letter, and I believe there are 9 members on the board. I've got 10 copies here that I can pass around. I just received this letter earlier this afternoon. The borough had asked us to get a letter from West Pharmaceuticals, just making the ask and detailing what that is. You will see on the back page that there is a map that actually details each of the parcels that are associated with their development, because they own multiple parcels beyond just the physical plant there. And I'll give you a chance to review it.
I do want the board to know, because we've talked about timing,
Yes.
that Jason Fink will also be presenting to the Borough Council tonight, who potentially may take action this evening.
They will not.
Oh,
Actually,
they will not.
I can let you know, they actually have to publicly advertise this because it will be an ordinance. That was something we learned. So it will be presented to them tonight, and then they will vote next month at their meeting next month.
I just know that I wanted them to be aware.
Yes, no, yep, that we've been talking, yes.
Timeline.
Yep.
Kay Laxman December 2.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
You may have already mentioned this, the timing of the project,
They are looking at making a decision on the location here as soon as next month. And they are looking at having construction start possibly next year. There's some equipment that they need to order, but they're hoping to be operational sometime in 2024. My guess is third to fourth quarter of 2024. And that's ideal right now. I will be honest with you. If you've dealt with anything in the construction, I can tell you right now, there's a lot of time horizons that are being pushed further out, so.
Other questions?
Correct. It gradually builds up 25% each 2 years, except for the final year, which is 1 year, and then it's fully on the tax rolls at that point.
Now, they could have tax increases, but what on the building is that they have now, not on the new part.
Correct. You are correct. If taxes go up, they would pay on the existing properties that they own. On the new addition, correct. Correct.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 125 potential jobs
Correct.
in our area, in just our town.
At this Jersey Shore plant, correct.
So that's in addition to what we have. Do you think like that would get bigger then, like from there, or it would stay at 126?
I would.
Which 125?
Personally, I think that they like this community, both let's just say Lycoming County. And this would take them with their Lycoming County employment to being one of their largest plants. When I'm combining both Williamsport and Jersey Shore, they would be one of their largest that they have. Kingston right now, I believe, has just over 650 employees down there. They're in an industrial park, but this would bump them with what they're doing in Williamsport, and then with this here, it would take them well over 700 employees.
That's nice revenue for our town.
That's the one thing about it is people will spend money in your local community.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Jason, I was trying to look on my documents real quick. I believe, I'm confident saying this publicly, I believe they're one of our top 5 employers within the district boundaries.
Within the district boundaries, I think you're very safe to say that.
So the additional number of employees may put them in the top 3. Just thinking real quick off top. I was trying to think. There's a bond disclosure I had to do in the past. And I had the top 5 employers. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah,
I probably put us in the top. Put them in the top 3 employees.
They are. I know in the county, with combining the 2 facilities, they are already one of the top 10 employers, and that's taking out government aspects of it. From the private employer side of it, they are definitely one of the top.
Any other questions? Thank you. You'll get back to us then when you need.
Well, I believe next meeting we'll be asking you all to vote on this. And hopefully by then we'll have a little bit better of an understanding as to where we stand. I'm always in touch with them. So whatever I can share with you, I will definitely. And also just very happy to be here just because of the fact that there is a lot of good things going on in the county, throughout the county, actually. You know, Williamsport, as I shared, it's having an expansion here. Montgomery over across from the landfill. There's an expansion going on over there. And hopefully very soon having this project here in your backyard. So thank you. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're good. Thank you. That's my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is courtesy of the floor, which nobody has signed up for. So we'll move on to personnel, letters A through U. Several things on this. We have the appointment of several teachers. Avery Hess, Samantha for science, Samantha Bailey, kindergarten, Paige Eisworth, kindergarten, Caitlin Winton, English, Jordan Russell, 5th grade, Shelby Pauling, 4th grade teacher. Other appointments such as Holly Lehman, 12-month secretary at JSASD, Brad Williamson to science department coordinator, Carrie Warner, full-time custodial position starting July 5th, Beth Runch, full-time paraprofessional. Runch, I guess that's how they say that. We have a transfer of 2 paraprofessionals to other schools, and Joshua Stover will be moving to Avis as head custodian. There are letters of resignation, an updated letter from Levi Kramer. I think there was a problem with the date on the original one that we had. Matt Hartman of the middle school cross-country coach, Michelle Matter, part-time food service. We have a letter of retirement from Cynthia Davis of the library paraprofessional. We have a termination of an employee. We have an FMLA for an employee, and we have Matt Hartman going to a volunteer coach for cross-country. May I have a motion for letters A through U? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor say aye. Motion has passed. Curriculum and instruction, the addition of the course CHM 100. It's a PCT, a Penn College Technology dual enrollment course open to sophomores and juniors for the 22-23 school year. I don't think it was dual enrollment before.
Wasn't dual enrollment before, so since that wasn't in the course guide originally that you approved, it does have to be approved by the board.
So by our kids signing up for the dual enrollment, they'll also be earning 4 college credits. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Oh wait,
Aye.
did we get motion? No, I'm sorry. It's only one little item, I forget. May I have a motion? Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not in
Aye.
favor, like sign. Motion is passed. Building and grounds, there's no items under building and grounds tonight. Moving on to finance, we have items A through J, of which I and J will be roll call votes. We have Blast IU and Jersey Shore School District with the intergovernmental agreement. We have the IDEA agreement with Blast. We have a contract with Direct Energy, an engagement letter with Baker Tilly for our audit, authorizing the business manager to do what he needs to do to pull things together for the end of the fiscal year, authorizing fund transfers for capital projects and fund commitments, the JSASD 75 validation and relative services agreement, the homestead farmstead resolution, which is $312.65 for both Lycoming and Clinton County, the resolution to set final real estate taxes for 2022-2023 with 18.3807 for Lycoming, 13.8206 for Clinton, and the final budget for 22-23 as identified in PDE 2028. Both I and J will be roll call votes. May I have a motion for A through J?
I didn't hear the
Oh.
motion.
Through J? Did you say through J?
Right, but I and J will be roll call.
Okay.
All right, any of those you want to give any brief explanation on?
Final budget deficit, is set at $1,357,258. Of this, $492,953 will be funded through the committed fund balance. $864,305 of deficit will be funded through the unassigned fund balance. Current revenues, or final revenues, are set at $43,721,158. One big key point here is that this budget does not reflect an increase in state funding. Any increase we will receive from this Commonwealth would just simply reduce our budget deficit for this year. Mrs. Thomas already went through the rates, so I will not repeat those, in the homestead farmstead parcels. And finally, the final budget expenditures are set at $45,078,416. And then for the board's notes, I provided you a listing, a count of positions in what I call a major position. Are there any questions regarding the budget? Questions over the finance items?
Yes, I have a question on, item, C. The, direct energy contract,
Yeah,
the kilowatt rate is 9.633. How does that compare with H&L's rate?
the first to compare.
Yeah.
1,000. And it's just,
And if rates would go, down, which is probably slim and none, is there an early cancellation fee?
We don't expect to get it to get cheaper, but we can always hope that we have to ask. It is a good rate. It's higher than where we were in our previous contract, but it's still a good rate.
And also an item, the Baker Tilly services. What is the percentage increase? I would like to make some comments on item I.
Wayne, I'll ask questions on those
Okay,
separate.
yep.
We have to do EM.
Any other questions on A through H?
Well, I have a question on this that he gave us, so can I
Okay.
ask that?
Go ahead.
Okay. So that top part, reflects a budget deficit of 1.357258. So we still have that amount of a deficit with increasing the tax?
Yeah, we've discussed this state. The $600 state actually shifted revenue from real estate tax over to the homestead farm line up.
Any other questions on A through H? Hearing none, all those in favor of A through H, say aye.
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 Not in favor, like sign. Motion passes for A through H. Letter I, these will be a roll call, but I'll allow you questions. Questions on letter I?
I have a comment on I, more than a question. When I reran the numbers, and Ben got them exactly the way they are, but I think in fact, the 1.18% increase only applies to Clinton County. And like Cumming County is actually only 0.74%. Right. Yep. Okay. I just want to point out, and you've heard me say this probably before, that we have the highest rate in the county. The next highest is Williamsport at 17.24. So we're a whole mil plus than Williamsport, and the next closest is I think it's Montoursville at 16 point something. But just to put that into perspective, a $100,000 assessed valued home in Jersey Shore with our actually the 21-22 rate, so I can compare apples and apples. That home is paying $1,825. Williamsport on the same $100,000 home is paying $1,724, or roughly $100 less. Montoursville is paying $1,623, or $160 less. And Lawsock is paying $1,467, or $360 less. And that's on a $100,000 home. Obviously, a $200,000 home, everything's doubled. But the point I'm trying to make simply is, as we deal with these deficits, even if we would have added to the full index in the last 2 years, it would have generated, I think, in the neighborhood of 500,000 additional revenue. But this year's deficit of 1.3 million, it obviously would have put a dent in that. But we've got to look for other ways, and soon, to deal with these deficits. Or, I mean, we're on a track that we're headed to, I think, a financial problem here in a couple of years. So that's all I want to say at this point on the real estate tax.
Any other comments or questions?
Mine's more of a comment. I agree with Wayne. We definitely need to retrench on how we're doing our spending, because our families in Jersey Shore they're retrenching. I grew up with depression grandparents and depression parents that were trained the same way. And I have paperwork from companies in Williamsport that have the graphs that show in March there was a spike in 2 days that raised the prices for gas, nickel, steel, copper, oil in 2 days. Those 2 days is what caused our prices to go up. And we need, and this is not my forte. However, if anybody wants to look at this, you're more than welcome. But for us to get back to where we were 2 days before this spike, it will take us 2 years. I know that in my region, my constituents, the only thing they ask is not to raise the taxes because they can't afford it. They don't, that's all they ask. They don't ask for anything else for us to do. So I know that makes it pretty prevalent on how I'm going to raise, how I'm going to vote. But I just went and bought feed and it went up $30. And that's not feed for my pets. That's feed for stock. That's my family income for just me. That's not my dad's. And this seed company is another prospect because they had to raise their prices for seed. That's going to cause the produce. So this isn't something that I'm a deluded person thinking like, I have this magic ball that's going to tell me what our future is going to be. It doesn't look like the next 2 years is going to be easy for our community. And with us being the most expensive community to live in, with not having the Golden Strip, the businesses, the companies that were in Williamsport, Loyalstock, and Montoursville. We don't have it. Gas prices is $5 in Lock Haven. It's $4.99 on Allegheny Street for gas. So that also is included. That's why this is expensive. You need these metals to make fuel. You need these metals to take diesel and break it down into gasoline. You need gasoline to transport the seeds. You need to transport the produce. So we don't even know with the cost of fertilizer that went up also with seed, we don't even have those prices added to the products that's going to come out of this area that's going to have to raise that price. And the farmers were just talking this week that eggs are going to be $1 each. So that's another like perspective to look at. So to raise the taxes, even like minuscule amount, it's not practical for our community. I'm sorry to say it like that. I don't know. We're going to have to retrench, find a way. I don't know if we need to bring in somebody who's outside to look at these school district as a business and say, okay, this is what you have to do. I don't know. I'm new to this. I just got here. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Enders, take the roll call, please.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. All right, questions or comments on the final budget?
Yes, I would like to make some comments. Piggybacking on what I said regarding the real estate taxes and the fund balance that I alluded to, just some comparisons over the last 2 years. The total fund balance at the end of 21 was 9.7 million. That's right off the audit report. The projected fund balance at the end of 22, which is projected because the audit hasn't been done yet, is 7.7 million. So that's a decrease of six. I'm sorry. What am I at here? 3.4 million. I'm sorry. 2 million. The unassigned fund balance is pretty much the money that is available for general operations. At the end of 21, it was 5.6 million, and for 2022, it's projected to be 4.1 million. So you can see the trend and where we're headed. as far as our fund balance, which really we've used in the last 2 years, we've used a good chunk to balance our budget. And we're gonna run out of years where fund balance is gonna be available. I don't know if administration has thought about any ways to stop this slide, but and here's a couple other numbers. I don't want to bore you with too much detail, but our revenue, budgeted revenue for 21-22 is 42.8 million. For 22-23, it's 43.7 million, or only an $880,000 increase. Our expenditures, however, are budgeted up to 1.4 million. So the net change in, we're adding 550-some thousand to our deficit just in 1 year, or a fund balance deficit, just because we're not living within our revenue. And again, I would ask the administration, have you discussed any ideas at all on how we can cut costs?
Well, I think my answer to that would be, we go through and the board has seen the line by line from every department, and all the principals, all the supervisors come and they go through their entire budget, and we did have a number of things that we cut out to get us to this point, and it's really difficult. I think Mr. Schweitzer was even the person that said, like, every year we go back to those principals and say, cut this, cut that. We're getting to the point where there's not a whole lot of things in those budgets to cut.
Okay, so just suppose the state money doesn't come through, and this year we have a $1.3 million deficit. What's to say that we won't continue down that path? If we can't generate more revenue, what is going to be the answer to our sustainability as far as being solvent? Something.
If I can just comment quickly. I kind of know where you're getting at along these lines, Wayne. And I think you need to look at who's seated on the board with you and know that we are not going to hire teachers when we don't need them. We're not going to spend extra when we know that it's completely wrong. I know that there are going to be a ton of retirements at the high school and middle school levels in the next couple of years. And if our enrollment in those schools is not as high as it once was, I can pretty much guarantee that we're not going to approve to fill all those positions. I think when you were in interviews, like, we just hired teachers at Bachelor 1, 2, and 3 steps. We're not looking for master teachers, but we're looking for good teachers that are going to educate our children. So I know there's nothing that we can change for the budget for this year, but I also know that we as a whole for the board can be frugal and make the decisions that we're guided to make.
I agree with you on that. We cannot do anything for this coming budget year. But I just want to talk about our enrollment in the last 8 years. 2014 was the first year after we closed Nipponos. And these are off of PDE reports. which supposedly are official enrollment numbers submitted by the district. From 2313 to 2014 to this current year that we're just finishing, we've lost 435 students overall, a decrease of 16.7%. And I got the data from all the other 7 districts in Lycoming County. And Williamsport lost 5 more students, but being twice as large as us, their percentage decrease was 8.6% versus our 16.7%. Montoursville is down 8.9%. Loyalsock is actually up 4%. To me, the problem is in the elementary piece. Total elementary has dropped 233 in these last 8 years, almost 20%. Avis has dropped 68, 27%. Saudisburg has dropped 100, 35%, or a combined total of 31%. JSC has only dropped 65, or 10%. So what does that tell us? Do we really think that we can reverse these declines? I mean, is there anything out there that would suggest that?
You just have an employer that came tonight that might be adding 125 families.
That's a gamble.
Anything's a gamble. Anything's a gamble.
That's in 2024
26.
or 26, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we're gonna.
No, that in 2026 is when they would probably have them in there before then, but we won't see the tax increase in 2026.
Yeah, let's admit that we don't know what the future holds. What is different about Jersey Shore versus every other school district in Lycoming County? I mean, we know the facts. Is there a way that we can do things differently that will?
But that's not the discussion to have right
Right,
now.
I'm
We're working on.
point of order.
We're working on whether we're going to pass this budget
Okay.
or not.
Okay. The only other thing that I will say is that there is a solution. And that's to have one elementary school. And I can.
Wayne, this is not the place for that right now. The question is dealing with the budget, and we're going to talk about that, as you well know, on Wednesday, and we're going to have open discussion and work sessions on that. We are discussing whether you're going to pass it. If it's pertaining to this budget directly, then carry on, but this is not the time for that.
Okay. I'm done.
Any other questions or concerns?
But I do want to say one more thing. As it affects this budget, we've added 5 elementary teachers, counting this past year that we're just finishing, and 3 more for the upcoming budget. That's $500,000 plus that is helping to cause this $1.3 million deficit.
Not totally, because you had some retirements too, so there is a balance. There is some increase. I'm not going to deny that, but it's not to that. It's not to that level.
Well, it is to the elementary level. We've added a net of 5 new teachers.
Well, because there are students there. There are more students there.
Okay.
We didn't add any just to add them.
Well, you won't let me finish the conversation because it's not topic, but it does affect the 22-23 budget is what I'm saying. The 5 new teachers, in my opinion, if we would look at things differently, we would not have $500,000 more in the budget in 22, 23.
But Wayne, what you're not saying, and what people do not realize, if you close elementary schools, you're gonna have to build onto JSD because it's not big enough to house those children. It's over 1,000 kids. So if you're gonna throw that out there, I want everybody to understand. We're talking millions of dollars to build.
All right, again, that's not the discussion right now.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to deal with the final budget. Any other questions?
I'd like to say something. Again, I'm new at this board, and you're saying that what they're saying has nothing to do with the budget when it has to do with the budget. They're only taking up a little bit of time to say their point, Patrice, Wayne, myself. So to cut them off and say, we're not discussing it, let them finish. It's kind of rude.
The discussion will happen on Wednesday, and then there will be open board work sessions of which we all agreed to do.
Was that addressed to me?
I'm just addressed all of us. You said that was, cut them off, but the discussion is, what they're talking about has nothing to do with the 22-23 budget.
Does it have to do with the budget?
We're on the 22-23 budget. That's what the motion is. Any further questions? Mr. Enders, roll call.
Yes.
Mrs. Calhoun,
Yes.
Ms. Stolberg.
Yeah.
Mrs. Edwards,
No.
Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Kinley,
No,
Mrs. Petrosky,
Yes.
Mrs. Stemler,
No.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-3.
All right, next we have, which is miscellaneous, and we have A through M. I'll take the motion for A through L, and then we'll do M separately. In this, we have a MOU between Jersey Shore and Blast on curriculum and professional learning. We have a donation of an iPad to the athletic department, an agreement between Jersey Shore and Marquis, Pennsylvania. Policy 237 for the first read. Renewal memorandum understanding between the Pennsylvania State Police and also one between the Dot and Valley Regional Police. And the reason we have the state police because Salisbury, is Avis under them? Salisbury and Avis are under state police jurisdiction. The following field trip, this is the FBLA National Leadership Conference in Chicago, Illinois, of which 8 students are participating. Letter of agreement between the West Branch Drug and Alcohol Abuse Commission and our school district. Qualified Service Organization agreement between West Branch Drug and Alcohol Abuse Commission, Wilkes University and Jersey Shore School District certification preparation, disposal of high school books as listed in the attached listing, which were basically old history books, and the renewal of McCormick Law Firm as the Jersey Shore School District solicitors. No, it's not.
The only increase, I wrote that on my other copy of the agenda. The only increase to your letter of agreement with McCormick Law is the rate for professional services is $155 an hour for 22-23. It was $150 an hour for 21-22. Everything else is the same.
May I have a motion for A through L?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All right, do we have questions on any of these? What's the difference between a qualified service with the West Branch? I mean, we have 2 things right there in a row. One's a letter of agreement.
There were 2 things that has to be approved. The letter of agreement is the standard renewal that they work with our schools for SAP services. The qualified agreement spells out what information we can pass back and forth. Yep, the policy 237 change was to be very clear about what, we took the old policy and made very clear what is and is not allowed. So for example, we spelled out in bulleted, well, they're listed in number form, what authorized uses are for cell phones and what are explicit violations of the policy. Where before it pretty much just referred to the student handbook, now it's spelled out specifically what is and isn't allowed. For the board's benefit, one thing that did change based on our prior conversation is that very last page where it said exceptions, now it says authorized uses. So it's very clear based on Mr. Kenyon's feedback that instead of saying these are exceptions to the policy, those are the only authorized uses under this policy. It would fall back to that authorized uses. These are the things that you as a board are authorizing cell phones to be used for. It will refer back to this policy. Well, that's where we talked about the parent and student education.
Like the authorized uses, if that's the situation, we could ask the principals to add that part of it to their handbook. That's not a big deal. There's more additional things, like how they use cell phones in the building and not in the building. I think all the buildings are a little bit different. Elementary is different than middle school, different than high school, but there would not be a problem to add that to the authorized uses from policy 230.
To help. I do want to point out to the board, because Mrs. Grant chaired this committee and will not be with us at the next meeting. Tonight it's on for first read, but we will hold off and put it on for second read in July so that if there's further questions, her and I will both be here to answer them.
Any other questions? All those in favor of A through L, aye.
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 All those not in favor, like sign. Carries. All right, letter M.
I'd like to nominate Nancy Kosowski. Filling Michelle's spot for 6 months. Is that when we reorganize?
This always has to be done at this meeting, right, Ben? The treasurer's always at the June meeting.
Well, I knew that it ran that way, but I knew that we.
You were correct. When we reported, Mr. Stemmer was voted as the vice president, at which point in time triggered the need to fill the treasurer position, and Mr. Kinley was voted in at reorg in December to fill the treasurer position for
I knew we hadn't done that before, so I just wanted to try. Thank you.
So, we'll take nominations.
I nominate Wayne.
Who's that, Michelle? Who nominated Wayne? Oh, Jessica.
Edwards nominated Wayne Kinley.
Any other nominations? Motion to close nominations. a second on that, or we need a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Not in favor, like sign. Motion to close nominations has passed. Now, in the past, we basically identified the person that you want. Mr. M, just take a roll call. You're either going to identify Wayne Kinley or Nancy Petrosky.
Mr. Allen,
Wayne?
Ms. Calhoun,
Nancy.
Ms. Stobler, Mrs. Edwards,
Wayne.
Mrs. Grant, Mr. Kinley,
Wayne.
Petrosky,
Nancy.
Mrs. Stemler,
Mr. Kinley.
Mrs. Thomas,
Nancy.
Petrosky.
Moving on to the second courtesy of the floor for items agendas not on the agenda. State your name, address, and topic you would like to address, and you'll have 3 minutes. You going to address us tonight, Mr. Schweitzer? Okay. We will have an executive session after this meeting, but we will adjourn, and there will be no further business taken. May I have a motion for adjournment? Oh, wait a minute. I missed old business. There is no old business. I wrote it at the top of the page. There is no old business. So, may we have an adjournment? Second for adjournment? Angela, second. All right, we will then go into an executive session.